Greetings, viewers, and welcome to another movie review on Gazettely. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into the latest addition to the classic horror franchise, The Exorcist, Believer.
And here are your daughters, Angela and Catherine. It's about 7 hours ago, and that's the last information we have.
Catherine!
Angela?
If you can hear this, we love you. Please come home.
Nearly 50 years after the original film scared audiences around the world, this sequel aims to continue the terrifying legacy while also appealing to modern fans. Directed by David Gordon Green, Believer brings back iconic characters like Chris MacNeil, played once again by Ellen Burstyn. But does this return to the world of demonic possession capture the same psychological dread of the original? In this video, we'll be exploring Believer in detail, breaking down the strengths and weaknesses of its plot, characters, themes, and fright effects to determine if it's worthy of the Exorcist name. Stick around to hear our full analysis. Connection to original film. One area where Believer really shines is in its numerous references and ties to the 1973 classic. Beyond Ellen Burstyn's iconic reprisal of Chris MacNeil, it mirrors the original storyline of a father desperately trying to save his possessed daughter. This allows for themes of parental fear and religious disillusionment to once again take center stage. Stylistically, Believer also emulates key elements of the original like the muted color palette and gritty cinematography. It grounds the horror in realism similar to how Friedkin filmed the first movie.
The body and the blood! The body and the blood!
You really get a sense that the filmmakers studied and respected the source material. Some critics argue these homages feel more like fan service, but in my view it's a solid start for any sequel to make that vital connection with audiences back to what made the franchise chilling in the first place.
Yes, more than I'd like.
Themes and religious commentary. Beyond paying respects to its predecessor, Believer also aims to continue the series' tradition of thought-provoking religious commentary. However, this is where it perhaps stumbles the most. While The Exorcist focused intensely on the Catholic Church's stance on possessions, Believer takes a much broader approach, showcasing multiple faiths cooperating in exorcisms. On one hand, this reflects our modern pluralistic values, but it has the effect of diluting the commentary, some critics argue. Without zeroing in on one institution's doctrine, Believer isn't able to examine spiritual issues with the same intellectual depth as the original. It hints at ideas of trauma, grief, and faith crises, but doesn't really let these concepts blossom into the unsettling themes that fueled discussion for decades. Ultimately, Believer settles for a simpler good versus evil premise rather than truly grappling with doubts. It broaches thought-provoking topics, but could have taken things further to really drive viewers to reflect. Performances and characters. One element of Believer that deserves praise is the talent behind its central roles. Leslie Odom Jr. turns in a nuanced, emotionally gripping performance as the distressed father Victor. You really feel his anguish and dedication to saving his daughter. Likewise, young actresses Lydia Jewett and Olivia O'Neill unnervingly embody the intensities of demonic possession. Of course, having Ellen Burstyn return is a true treat, even if her role is smaller than fans likely hoped. She brings such weight and history just by virtue of her presence alone. Supporting players also leave their mark, like priests played by E.J. Bonilla and Raphael Esparge, who lean into their characters' distinct approaches. However, one criticism is that with so many characters introduced, few get enough individual focus. The plot spreads itself somewhat thin as it works to incorporate each person's perspective. A tighter script concentrating on fewer protagonists could have allowed for even richer development.
We've met before.
Direction and technical execution. In terms of its technical craft, Believer is solidly put together. Director David Gordon Green shows skilled use of camera work, lighting, and editing to sustain an unsettling atmosphere. He adopts documentary-like techniques utilizing handheld shots and natural lighting schematics to keep things grippingly real. Jump scares and loud sound effects are also utilized liberally to shock audiences, for better or worse. While some may argue this detracts from true psychological horror, it works to satisfy expectations of a modern blockbuster. Green also does well emulating iconic shots and sequences from the original, pleasing deep-cut fans. However, some critiques note Believer lacks the quaint unease Friedkin maintained so potently. Its scares feel slightly cheaper and less lingering compared to that film's masterful making of tension. So while Green shows professional command behind the camera, he's no William Friedkin in terms of using technique to burrow deeply under viewers' skin. Verdict: The Exorcist. Believer is a respectable addition to the classic franchise that fans will find lots to appreciate. It honors the original film's legacy while expanding the mythology for new audiences. Performances like Leslie Odom Jr. and Ellen Burstyn's contribute memorable character moments. Technical elements are also well executed under David Gordon Green's direction. However, it does not reach the same depths as its source material in terms of narrative focus, unsettling themes, or sustained psychological terror. Some may find it attempts too much fan service at the cost of a fresh vision. Ultimately, Believer works better as a tribute act than a truly distinctive sequel. While it doesn't rewrite horror history, believers will find it a solidly entertaining new chapter. Others may walk away wishing this exorcism had gone further to be fully worth their time.